A pregnant country girl suddenly appeared and threw her arms around the groom. Turns out she was his ex-girlfriend. She only found out she was pregnant after they broke up. Unwilling to let it go, she crashed the wedding, demanding he take responsibility for the baby. But the groom claimed they broke up a long time ago, so the baby might not even be his. The bride, a cruel rich lady, ordered her henchmen to brutally attack the country girl. She even kicked her in the stomach, causing her to lose the baby. The woman, named Now, tried her best to protect the little life inside her, even though her head was badly injured. Hearing her desperate screams and pleas, the groom helplessly left the scene. His company was on the verge of bankruptcy, and it was the bride's family that helped him survive the crisis. The brutal beating lasted over 10 minutes. Drawn by the screams, the bride's sister ran over and loudly scolded her sister for going too far. The bride insisted that Now ruined her wedding, so she deserved whatever punishment she got. The sister tried to step in to help the victim but was pulled aside by a henchman. The bride coldly told Now that if they ever met again, she wouldn't let her off the hook. Now used her last bit of strength to crawl up. She cursed at the bride and said she wouldn't give in no matter how cruelly she was treated. The bride grabbed Now by the hair, telling her she was just an ugly toad trying to eat swan meat. Now spat in the bride's face, making her furious. She slapped Now and shoved her to the ground. The sister saw it all. The bride stepped on Now's face, saying she was just dust beneath her feet. After humiliating her, she ordered her men to drag Now outside and shoot her. Unwilling to die like this, Now cursed the bride, saying she would never live in peace. The sister called her sister a lunatic, saying that if she hurt people, she'd have to pay with her life. But the younger sister argued that not finishing Now off would cause trouble later. If the baby really was the groom's, it would come back to fight for the inheritance. The groom and bride went back to the altar, and the wedding continued as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Now begged the two hitmen to spare her because she was pregnant, saying her unborn baby shouldn't have to die. However, the two men showed no mercy. Suddenly a gunshot rang out. The two hitmen were hit one by one and collapsed. It turned out the hotel director felt sorry for Now, and had sent someone to save her. When Now woke up, she found herself lying in a big bed at the hotel. Her body was covered in wounds, but she was still worried about whether the wedding went on as planned. The director told Now the wedding went smoothly and she had been in a coma for a day and a night. Luckily, the baby was saved. Now sincerely thanked the director. He told her to stay at the hotel to recover and to go back to her village once she got better. Even though Baithun didn't care about Now anymore, he felt a bit uneasy when he found out she was saved by a mysterious person. His wife Benny told him never to mention Now's name again. She figured that even if Now was alive, a country girl couldn't accomplish anything and wouldn't come back to cause trouble. The couple started their honeymoon after the wedding. That evening, Baithun gave the maid some money. He told her if Now showed up, she should give it to her so she could go far away, and his wife must absolutely not know about it. After Now's wounds healed, the director drove her back to the village. He told her if she ever needed help, she could come find him in the city. Her father, who had been waiting day and night, finally saw his missing daughter return. Now immediately knelt down to apologize to him. According to village custom, an unmarried woman who gets pregnant is considered a jinx and brings bad luck to the whole village. The villagers threw a bucket of manure on Now, chased her out of the village, and insulted her. Her father had to grab a big knife from the house to chase them away. That night, the villagers deliberately set fire to their wooden house. Trying to save his daughter, her father was burned alive inside. Now screamed in heartbreaking agony. From that moment on, she vowed to avenge her father, blaming that couple for destroying her family and home. She went to the city and met the director, hoping he could give her a job. The director arranged for Now to work as his assistant. Now would never forget this kindness. The secretary showed her around to get used to the environment and the work there. Baithun and his wife were also partners with the director. Now happened to see them, so she trailed Benny, holding a fruit knife and lurking by the restroom door. Suddenly, the director's secretary stopped Now, telling her that her actions were stupid and betrayed the director who saved her life. He told her that if she wanted revenge, she had to use her skills to defeat Benny and her husband, ruining their reputation, not just killing her directly. Just then Benny came out. Seeing her husband talking to the receptionist, she walked over and slapped the girl. Benny was extremely possessive and didn't allow any woman to talk to her husband. And this receptionist turned out to be Now's close friend from the village. The director appeared and told Benny to watch her mouth. Benny didn't apologize. Instead, she screamed at the employee. The director couldn't take it anymore and shouted at Benny. Now saw the whole scene. Benny said that since the receptionist was Now's best friend, she definitely wasn't any good either. Benny still hated Now for crashing her wedding. The director told the couple that after Now went back to the village, her house was burned down by the villagers, and told them to let the past go. To make both sides let go of their hatred, the director made up this lie. Later, he He also advised now to stop seeking revenge, saying she didn't have the power to fight them and was overestimating herself. He advised her to forget her hatred soon and return to a normal life. On the surface, now agreed, but behind his back, she secretly kept planning her revenge. A few months later, thanks to her excellent performance, now became the director's trusted assistant. The secretary noticed Now's ambition and warned the director that people's hearts are hard to read, but the director didn't pay any attention. Sure enough, spending so much time together led to love, and they started having feelings for each other. One day, while Now was wearing a white spaghetti strap dress, the director confessed his love to her, and they officially became a couple. The next day, Now was promoted to deputy director, while her colleagues looked on in admiration. One day, Now told the director she was pregnant with his child and wanted to get married. She thought the director didn't know she was already pregnant, but actually, he had known since the day he saved her. He exposed her lie right there and then. Upon hearing the truth, Now sobbed uncontrollably. The director said he had no plans to marry for now, but he would make it up to her financially. Hearing this, Now was so angry she fainted, never expecting that she had just been a clown to him all along. As for Benny, after getting married, she suddenly told her husband that because her uterine lining was too thin, it would be very hard for her to get pregnant. Her husband was furious, blaming her for not telling him clearly before the wedding. Because of this, the conflict between the couple became more and more intense. Benny promised her husband that she would definitely try her best to have a baby. After passing out from anger at the director, Now woke up in the hotel. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, so she wandered the hallway alone, crying. She saw an iron hook on a flower pot, and got the idea to use it to get rid of the baby in her belly. Scenes of being bullied in the past flashed through her mind, and she resolved to do it to herself. Carrying the scumbag's child, the woman wanted to use an iron hook to remove the 3-month-old baby from her womb. With agonizing screams, she drove the iron hook into her own body. Finally, unable to bear the pain, she passed out, leaving a pool of blood at the scene. Her best friend Dao and the director heard the screams and ran to save Now. When she woke up, luckily the baby inside her was still safe. But Now felt immense hatred toward the baby's biological father. The director suddenly appeared, saying he was willing to be the baby's father, and begged her not to hurt herself anymore. A few months later, Now successfully gave birth to a baby girl. The director also held a wedding with her. Now never forgot how Bai Thun and his wife had harmed her, and she was always planning her revenge. As for Bai Thun, since his wife couldn't conceive, their marriage was rocky, and arguments became a daily occurrence. After years of hard work, Now became one of the hotel's executive directors. Ever since her daughter was born, Now never loved her, because the blood of the man who hurt her flowed through the girl's veins. In contrast, the father loved the daughter dearly, caring for her as if she were his own flesh and blood. The daughter lacked a mother's love but never lacked a father's love. The director advised Now to treat their daughter better and fulfill her duties as a mother, instead of just burying herself in work all day. Now said she never considered the girl her daughter, and that allowing her to be born was already an act of mercy enough. The director told her to let go of her hatred. Since she had a new family now, she should be a proper mother. Because of their disagreements about their daughter, the conflict between the couple grew worse. The director's secretary took this opportunity to badmouth them and drive a wedge between them. He also wanted the director's seat, so he claimed he could help Now get revenge, but in reality he just wanted to use her to get ahead. The director wasn't stupid. He discovered the secretary's plot to take over, so he beat him up and fired him. After that, the director slapped Now on the cheek. He had kindly saved her life back then and even became a father to her child, yet she repaid his kindness with betrayal. Now said that if she couldn't get revenge, her life would have no meaning. To make Now let go of her hatred, he stripped her of all her positions and forced her to stay home and be a housewife from then on. The secretary overheard their conversation, so the two of them conspired to harm the director. Now personally stabbed the man who had saved her life. To cover up the crime, they put the director's body in the car and staged it as a traffic accident. The daughter looked at her dead father and cried desperately. Just like that, the two of them successfully avoided suspicion. Bai Thun and his wife were introduced to an infertility specialist, a young and beautiful female doctor. She successfully helped the wife get pregnant. She immediately went to tell her husband the good news, but bumped into the female doctor there. With her extreme possessiveness, the wife didn't allow any woman to speak to her husband, even the doctor who had helped her conceive. She slapped the doctor right across the face, warning her never to speak to her husband again, or she would beat her every time they met. Then, she ordered her henchman to take the doctor's dress and throw it out into the hallway. Back home, Bai Thun criticized his wife for being too cruel, saying that acting like that would only make more enemies. He said that if she continued to act like that, he would divorce her. Furious, the wife swung her hand and slapped her husband. Bai Thun couldn't take it anymore. He pushed his wife, sending her sprawling onto the floor. The fall caused her to start bleeding from below. The wife, who already had a thin uterine lining, lost the life that hadn't even fully formed yet. After being rushed to the hospital, the doctors couldn't save the baby. 10 years later, Baithun was driving on a day with heavy rain when a young girl suddenly appeared in front of him. Baithun was arguing with his wife at the time and couldn't brake in time, hitting the girl and sending her to the hospital. Luckily, she didn't suffer any serious injuries. It turned out that the girl was Nao's daughter. Since her adoptive father died, she hadn't received any family care for years, leading to severe emotional trauma and thoughts of suicide. Ironically, the person Baithun had just hit was his own biological daughter, but neither of them knew the truth. After the failed suicide attempt, the girl went up to the hospital rooftop, preparing to jump and end her life. Suddenly, a young man appeared and called out to her. The girl said she had been abandoned by her mother since she was little. The young man told her that the world still had many joyful things for her to discover. Since she was in this world, she definitely had her own worth. Besides her mother, there would be many other people who loved her. The girl suddenly thought of her grandmother, who loved her very much. The young man continued to describe what happens when someone falls from a height, saying the results would be gruesome, with the body severely damaged and hardly recognizable. Sure enough, this trick worked. The girl got scared and gave up her foolish plan. While going down, she fell into the young man's arms. It turned out this young man was the nephew of Nao's enemy, the son of Baithun's wife's sister. He had once witnessed his aunt trampling Nao under her feet. Now, he had successfully healed the emotional wounds of Nao's daughter. The two of them pinky swore to live a good life. 5 years later, the girl was 20 years old, all grown up, and had finished her studies with her best friend. Although her adoptive father had been dead for 10 years, she visited his grave every year to honor him. This was her fatherly love, as deep and heavy as a mountain. She had no idea that her biological father wasn't the man in the cemetery, but the driver who had hit her. As for Nao, after more than 10 years of striving, she had become the top leader of the corporation, inheriting all the director's assets. Next, she would find Baithun and his wife, the ones who had trampled her, to get her revenge. 20 years ago, she was just a hotel receptionist, tricked by a jerk, got pregnant, and was then harmed to the point of almost losing her life. Now she returned in style with a fortune worth billions. The scumbag Baithun saw a familiar back while passing a room, but he had long forgotten the woman he hurt 20 years ago. At the press conference for Baithun and his wife's company, the screen suddenly showed a video of Benny attacking someone in the hotel, from the elevator door all the way into the room. This was Nao's setup. She swore to ruin their reputation completely. Important clients of the company were all present, and everyone was bewildered. Just then, a woman in a red dress stepped out from the crowd. She was also one of the women Baithun and his wife had harmed, and now she was being used by Nao as a tool for revenge. Flyers listing the crimes the couple had committed were scattered all over the scene. Benny went crazy with rage and threw a roll of paper at the woman in red. Right then, a group of women rushed forward and surrounded Baithun. Everyone was completely shocked. The woman in red laughed loudly, never expecting that the cruel couple would finally face their karma. And the person behind orchestrating all of this was Nao. After the couple's scandal was exposed, the clients at the scene all chose to cancel their contracts one by one. Benny grabbed the woman in red by the hair, trying to shove her to the ground, but the other women rushed in, surrounded Benny, and beat her up satisfyingly. She only managed to escape when her sister arrived. The woman in red pulled out a gun and pointed it at Benny. Benny's nephew, Thin, suddenly appeared, snatched the gun, and pushed the woman in red to the ground. This moment, the mastermind behind it all now finally appeared and walked into the hall. She played the role of the good guy, detaining the woman in red and the sisters who had helped her cause trouble. Nao's current identity was the director of the hotel. She took the initiative to apologize to the guests. Benny had long forgotten the woman she trampled under her high heels 20 years ago. But Baithun felt Nao seemed strangely familiar. Benny thanked Nao and hoped she could hand the troublemakers over to the police. Baithun asked Nao if they had met somewhere before. Nao said this was the first time they had met. Baithun initiated a handshake with Nao. He felt certain he had known this woman before. Nao's daughter was also present at the meeting. In the backyard, she saw the group of troublemaking women being released by her mother's henchmen. She couldn't help but suspect the truth, so she followed them to get to the bottom of it. Seeing this, the henchmen deliberately pushed the girl into the pool and left. Just then, Finn appeared and jumped into the pool to save his girlfriend. Afterwards, the daughter asked her mother why she let the troublemakers go. She wanted to know the truth. Nao told her daughter not to meddle in other people's business and never told her the truth. The daughter still didn't know who her biological father really was. Back home, Baithun threw his phone on the floor. Because of today's scandal, clients were canceling contracts one after another, and the company would soon go bankrupt. The couple couldn't avoid an argument, making their already strained relationship even worse. For the past 20 years, Benny hadn't been able to conceive because of her thin uterine lining, which was also the root cause of the couple's conflict. After bankrupting their company, Now's next plan was to break up their marriage until they got divorced. After that, the woman in red suddenly demanded more money from Now, threatening to expose everything if she didn't pay. Now wasn't intimidated by her at all, and ordered her henchmen to take care of her quietly. The woman in red got scared immediately, saying she didn't need the money anymore, just her life spared. Now told her to get lost and go as far away as possible. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, the woman in red had barely left for a minute when she was dragged into a car by some burly men. The company Now announced to the corporation that Thin would take over as general manager of the hotel. She wanted to groom Thin to be on her side, then turn the nephew against his aunt. Now's goal wasn't just to wreck Benny's marriage, but also to destroy her family relationships, making the couple live in misery. Bent on revenge, Now never loved her daughter because the girl had the blood of the scumbag who hurt her running through her veins. When Sun tried to hug her mother, she was pushed away. Even though she didn't know what happened 20 years ago, the daughter always hoped her mother could let go of her hatred and start a normal life. Saying this, Sun's eyes filled with tears. Now splashed a cup of water in her daughter's face. She said she shouldn't have given birth to such a mistake, regretting that 20 years ago she didn't use that iron hook in the hallway to get rid of her. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in this situation today. The daughter was extremely lucky. She survived her mother's iron hook before birth and a car accident after she was born. Even though her mother didn't love her, she still hoped that one day her mother would have a change of heart. Her boyfriend, Finn, stood outside the door and overheard the conversation in the room. Realizing his girlfriend had lacked a mother's love since childhood, Finn promised to help his girlfriend find out why her mother wanted revenge, to resolve the conflict between the two of them. Meanwhile, a woman was taking a bath when suddenly a man emerged from the water. He had been hiding underwater for a few minutes. After looking around to make sure no one was there, he thanked Now for saving his life. The man was nearsighted and wanted to see his savior's face clearly, but Now pushed him away. Then she rang the bell, telling her assistant to get the guest some clean clothes and help him escape. Turned out that just a few minutes earlier, Thun was signing a contract with a client at the hotel. Benny received a video from a stranger. Since she didn't allow Thun to talk to any woman, she immediately went to the hotel. She ran into Thun at the elevator doors. Thun reacted quickly and immediately fled through the emergency exit. Benny was hot on his heels, but since she didn't get a good look at Thun's face, she went checking room by room, eventually mistaking Now's room for one of them. She had no idea Thun was hiding in the bathtub. After Benny left, the assistant grabbed a towel hanging nearby to cover Now, turning her back to block Thun's view so he couldn't peek. Once Now had the towel on, she told Thun to leave immediately. The assistant found him some clean clothes. Meanwhile, Benny hadn't left yet. She was still waiting at the door. Now's daughter overheard the client on the phone and realized someone was pulling the strings from behind the scenes. It turned out Thun had been deliberately set up. Benny started looking everywhere for Thun again. At that moment, the client was also at the front desk looking for Thun, since he had run off before the contract was signed. Benny bumped into the client and rushed over to yell at her. The client wasn't a pushover either and argued back with Benny. Benny immediately slapped the client's face, then grabbed her hair and slammed her head onto the reception desk. The two women screamed and started brawling. The hotel manager and everyone else immediately ran over to break it up. Just then, the hotel director appeared and asked them to calm down. The client said she was only there to sign a contract with Thun when this crazy woman attacked her. Benny even wanted to charge at her again to settle things. Since getting married, Benny didn't allow Thun to talk to any woman. Every time she saw it happen, she would start a fight. Because of this, Benny had cruelly attacked many innocent women. With Now mediating, the two temporarily calmed down. Meanwhile, Thun was still struggling to find a way out. In the elevator, he met his biological daughter, but neither recognized the other. They just smiled and said hello. Then, the daughter helped Thun escape the hotel through the back door. Now's daughter appeared and said she had overheard the client's conversation, revealing that she was hired to set Thun up. Seeing her plot was about to be exposed, the client immediately fled the hotel. After that, Benny apologized to Now for causing trouble at the hotel. She had no idea that the person behind this whole setup was Now. The client was also hired by Now to frame Thun, with the goal of turning the couple against each other. Knowing the truth, Sun asked her mother why she deliberately framed Thun, as doing so would damage the hotel's reputation. Her adoptive father had poured his heart and soul into building this hotel, so doing this was disrespectful to his memory. Now was only focused on revenge. She warned Sun not to meddle in other people's business anymore. If her daughter hadn't saved Thun today, her plan wouldn't have failed. In the elevator, the man suddenly got bad intentions and put his arm around the woman's waist. seeing her heart beating fast without resistance. He pushed his luck and leaned in for a kiss. Looking at this familiar face, now remembered the scumbag from 20 years ago. She gently pushed Bai Thun away, saying this was a public place and it wasn't appropriate. While having dinner together, Bai Thun took the chance to hold Nao's hand and confess his feelings. He said that ever since they accidentally met at the hotel, he had fallen in love with her at first sight. He had no idea that Nao was the woman he had heartlessly abandoned 20 years ago, who now had a new face thanks to plastic surgery. The scene of their date was photographed by someone. Nao didn't accept his confession, saying she needed to think it over carefully before deciding, since they had only met a few times. Even though 20 years had passed, the scumbag's sweet words hadn't changed a bit. Nao couldn't be fooled by him a second time. To pursue Nao, Bai Thun deliberately created opportunities for private meetings. In the conference room, he gently put his arm around Nao's waist. A nearby camera recorded this moment. Bai Thun tried to go a step further and kiss Nao, but she kicked him in his faucet, cursing him for being a scumbag who couldn't change his old ways, wanting to kiss before they were even officially dating. That evening, her best friend advised Nao to keep her distance and never fall for Bai Thun again. Just then there was a knock on the door. It turned out Bai Thun had come to see Nao again. He had just got his faucet fixed, but he had already forgotten the pain. After the assistant left, Bai Thun immediately hugged Nao and got intimate. Bai Thun immediately apologized for his rude behavior. Nao already knew the real reason Bai Thun was approaching her. It turned out Bai Thun's company was on the verge of bankruptcy, and he wanted Nao to invest to save it, even going so far as to kneel and beg. Nao remembered that 20 years ago, she had also knelt and begged Bai Thun to spare her and her unborn child, but Bai Thun still ordered his henchmen to kill her. She never expected that their roles would be reversed, with Bai Thun now being the one kneeling. The next day, at the press conference, Nao, as the corporation's director, announced she would invest in Bai Thun and Benny's company, acquiring a 50% stake and becoming the largest shareholder. Bai Thun thanked Nao again, but she told him there was no need to thank her. It turned out that Nao hadn't agreed to Bai Thun's proposal yesterday. It was only after he left and Benny came to beg her that she finally agreed. After being married for many years, the husband had lost interest in his wife, and their married life became like two roommates living together. No matter how much the wife tried to make a move, the husband remained unmoved. Suspecting something was wrong with her husband, the wife secretly checked his phone while he was in the bathroom that morning. Unexpectedly, her husband's phone was completely clean, with nothing on it. Could it be that she was just overthinking things? It turned out the husband had two identical phones. The other one was hidden inside his pillow, and after using it, he would hide it under the bed. In the morning, Benny smelled a woman's perfume on her husband's shirt, but she had never bought that kind of perfume, so she called Nao to strategize. She was certain this wasn't her perfume, but she felt like she had smelled it somewhere before. Nao told her to stop being so paranoid, saying her husband was a very good man who would absolutely never do anything out of line. With Nao's comfort, Benny finally felt at ease. Today was their wedding anniversary, and Benny wanted to have dinner with her husband, but he flatly rejected her, claiming the company had a very important meeting that night. After saying that, he hurriedly left. Benny was grinding her teeth in anger. She was only 40 years old but was already living like a widow. Benny's sister also knew that her younger sister's marital relationship wasn't good. Benny had someone track her husband's movements. The henchman reported back that her husband had left the company in the afternoon, but they didn't know where he went, and he didn't return home until late at night. Bai Thun lied again, claiming he had stayed at the company to work overtime. Benny didn't expose him right then and there. Instead, she comforted her husband, telling him not to work too hard in the future. She tried to kiss her husband, but he pushed her away. Her husband said there were employees around so it wouldn't look good. After that, he went into the house alone. Benny felt ashamed and furious. Clearly, he had been out fooling around somewhere but claimed he was working overtime at the company. So, Benny had someone find a way to replace her husband's dash cam. The next day, Benny went to Nao for help, walking straight into the office without knocking. Benny told the secretary to step out for a moment, saying there was an urgent matter to discuss. After the secretary left, Benny told Nao that yesterday her husband used working overtime as an excuse to skip their wedding anniversary, but he wasn't at the company at all and didn't come back until late at night. Nao advised her to stop letting her imagination run wild, to return to a normal life, and to stop being paranoid. Just then, her sister and nephew suddenly showed up. It turned out that a short video had just gone viral online, showing a man and a woman hugging in a car, but their faces weren't captured. Her sister said the man in the video looked like Benny's husband. Benny said it was absolutely impossible for it to be her husband, the voice didn't sound like him, and her husband would absolutely never do such a thing. Her best friend standing next to her remained silent and didn't say a word. Just then, Benny received a phone call saying her elderly mother had suddenly fainted at the hospital. So, the two sisters immediately rushed to the hospital. Seeing her brother-in-law, the sister didn't care about right or wrong and rushed up to get physical, cursing him as a jerk. Baithun angrily pushed the sister against the wall. Benny and her nephew immediately rushed forward to stop them. Baithun said the person in the video wasn't him at all, told them not to slander people without investigating clearly, and accused them of blaming him for his mother-in-law fainting. Baithun told his wife to stand up and defend him. Benny said the person in the video didn't look much like her husband, and told her sister to stop causing trouble for no reason. The two sisters started arguing again. Baithun stood on the side, looking smug. In a fitting room at a shopping mall, two pairs of legs appeared under the right partition. The woman leaning against the wall suddenly heard strange noises coming from her best friend. She felt confused. Clearly, her best friend was alone next door. So why were there other noises? It turned out that just a moment ago, the two best friends had gone shopping together. Baithun walked past and happened to see them. Taking advantage of the moment they separated to try on clothes, he went into Nao's fitting room, while her best friend in the room next door was completely unaware. Baithun slowly approached Nao, and seeing that she didn't resist, he pushed his luck. Benny heard the noise and immediately went out to check. The moment she pulled the curtain open, her best friend was alone. After checking the surroundings, she didn't see anyone else either. Benny explained that she had just heard a strange noise. Her best friend said she was probably hallucinating, as she was the only one there. Benny was skeptical. That evening, after returning from shopping, Nao saw Baithun waiting at her door. This was the first time he had come to Nao's house to spend the night. He saw the photo of Nao's late husband. After a few glasses of red wine, the two of them opened up to each other. They were about to take things a step further when the secretary suddenly walked into the room. Nao told him to report whatever it was tomorrow, and not to ruin the good time she was having with Baithun. The secretary was furious. He had devoted himself to Nao for 20 years, only to find himself back at square one. Baithun lay in Nao's arms, expressing his love and promising to love only Nao. Unexpectedly, these were the same words Nao had heard 20 years ago, now being repeated. A scumbag is still a scumbag. After Baithun left, Nao opened the drawer and took out her father's portrait. Even though 20 years had passed, she couldn't hold back her tears every time she thought of her father. She would never forget the scumbag who caused her father's death. From a country girl, she had climbed step by step to the position of director. Everything she had sacrificed was to avenge her father. But what she never expected was that she would fall in love with that scumbag all over again. The wealthy now gave the man a huge sum of money and told him it was a love gift between the two of them, seeing two suitcases full of cash. Baithun was overjoyed and agreed to the wealthy woman's request without hesitation. Married for 20 years, the couple had long since become like neighbors, and Baithun had no affection left for his wife. Now he was planning how to get rid of his wife, while she still loved him dearly. But Benny wasn't stupid either. She vaguely felt that her husband might be harboring bad intentions toward her. Sure enough, on his wife's birthday, the husband drugged her red wine. The wife was so happy because her husband hadn't celebrated her birthday with her for years, so she let her guard down and drained the glass. Soon she started feeling drowsy. The husband gently held his wife, pretending to be a loving couple, planning to end her life without her knowing why. Once his wife was fast asleep, Baithun was about to use a pillow to finish her off when Nao suddenly appeared and told him not to hurt her just yet. That was because if Benny died, her sister would inherit the assets. Since Baithun was just a gold digger who married into the family, he wouldn't get a single penny. Nao had a new plan now. First, frame Benny and her sister's company to drive a wedge between the two sisters. Nao would use this chance to take over their company, and then it wouldn't be too late to kill her. The two of them reached an agreement. The next day, Benny woke up completely clueless. She thanked her husband for making time to celebrate her birthday the night before despite being busy, unaware that she had almost met her maker. Meanwhile, Baithun and Nao split up to put their plan into action. Baithun used a box of apples to bribe a high-ranking official in his wife's company. Underneath the fruit was $2 million in cash, buying the official off to be his inside man. As for Nao, she tricked Benny's sister into signing a trap contract involving illegal mining. 4 years, the sister's career had never measured up to her younger sister's. She wanted to use this opportunity to prove herself to their elders, not realizing she was just a pawn in Nao's revenge. This point, Benny still considered Nao her closest and most trustworthy friend. She invited Nao to get a massage and, with her guard completely down, even revealed important secret company projects to her. After the massage, Benny suddenly got a call from her subordinate. The exposed truth left her stunned. Acting on a gut feeling that her husband was up to no good, Benny had secretly installed surveillance cameras in the house beforehand. Those recordings clearly showed her husband and Nao conspiring together the night before to harm her. In that moment, Benny's mind went blank. The two people she trusted and was closest to were the very ones who wanted to destroy her. Rage boiled up, making her grit her teeth as she turned and walked straight toward Nao. who still had no idea the secret was out. Benny rushed over and slapped Now across the face, her voice trembling with anger as she demanded to know why she betrayed her. Now was stunned for a moment, but she quickly revealed her true colors. She fought back, grabbing Benny's hair. She laughed coldly, calling her a fool and mocking her for only realizing the truth now, clearly enjoying Benny's pain and despair. Benny grabbed Now's hair too, and they both tumbled into the pool. They fought fiercely underwater, neither one giving an inch. Benny gained the upper hand and held Now's head underwater, wishing she could end her life right then and there. Suddenly, the scene shifted, and Benny was standing there frozen. It turned out that was just her imagination. Knowing the truth, Benny didn't know what to do. In the hot spring, Benny asked Now why she bought shares in her company. Now said it was because they were best friends, and Benny was someone she really admired. Benny was so angry she felt like she would explode. She wished she could take Now out right there, but instead, she had to go back to the company and vent her rage by trashing her office. She wondered what bad karma she had accumulated in a past life to end up marrying a husband like this and meeting a best friend like that. Unwilling to accept defeat, Benny decided to beat them at their own game and planned her revenge. She invited both her husband and her best friend to the company and announced she was going abroad for business the next day. She deliberately acted lovey-dovey with him in front of Now, pretending she didn't know a thing. Once she was abroad, Thun and Now would surely make a move on the company, and that's when she would call the reporters to expose their lies right then and there. The husband, still feeling smug, told Now about his wife's business trip, unaware that they had both fallen into Benny's trap. Realizing her best friend had betrayed her, the woman shoved her onto the sofa and strangled her. However, Now seemed to enjoy it, or perhaps she just liked seeing her in pain. Now grabbed Benny's hair, flipped her over, sat on top of her, and started beating her like crazy. The two of them wrestled on the sofa. Now strangled Benny. The husband, restrained by henchmen nearby, watched helplessly as the two women hurt each other. Benny refused to give in. She used the same move to flip Now over, pinned her down by the neck, and landed a few blows of her own. Just then, a swarm of reporters rushed in, pointing their cameras at the two women and snapping photos non-stop. It wasn't until the doctor and Thin arrived that the reporters were chased out. It turned out Benny had called the reporters on purpose to expose Now's scandal. Meanwhile, the two women were still tangled up on the sofa, locked in a stalemate. Only when the doctor and Thin entered the room could they pull them apart. Benny was still furious and tried to break free to keep fighting. Thin handed Benny a file. It turned out that just yesterday, Benny's sister had mortgaged her company shares to Now to get involved in illegal mining operations. Now then took the opportunity to report the sister, killing two birds with one stone. At that moment, Benny received a distress call from her sister. She never expected Now to be so cruel, so she immediately went to the police station to bail her sister out. But the shares her sister had mortgaged to Now were gone for good. She had originally called the reporters to expose Now, but now she had become the headline herself. Benny bailed her sister out of the police station. She hadn't expected to be outsmarted by Now. She only wanted to bring glory to the company. Growing up, the older sister never measured up to her younger sister in anything, and she could never hold her head high in front of their mother. Saying this, she broke down sobbing. When she got home that night, she was surprised to see her husband had the nerve to come back. The wife scolded him for being heartless, saying she had supported him for over 20 years, and now he wanted to harm her. Thun called his wife useless, saying she couldn't even produce a child in 20 years. This was also the root cause of the couple's discord. Every time they had a fight, the husband would bring this up. In the eyes of his wife and her sister, he was just a gold digger living without a shred of dignity. But elsewhere, he found his dignity as a man. Benny was furious but couldn't find the words to argue back, because deep down, she still loved her husband. That night, Benny caught Now's henchmen, forced her to confess about tricking her sister into signing the contract, then slashed her face with a knife. Benny was still just as cruel. Blood ran down the woman's neck to her chest, and then Benny finished her off. The next day, the body appeared at Now's door. Now's mother was scared and screamed nonstop. Now knew immediately that it was Benny's doing. Her mother advised Now to stop. Otherwise, more innocent people would lose their lives. She said that now they had money and power and lacked nothing. So she hoped her daughter could let go of her hatred and return to a normal life. Now promised her mother that after she finished avenging her father, she would sell the company and go back to the countryside to live with her. For 20 years, to avenge her father. Now had never had a good night's sleep. Her head was always filled with the image of her father being burned alive, and she had to rely on a lot of sleeping pills to get any rest. Her father's portrait was always placed right beside her bed. Now's daughter saw this scene and couldn't help but feel heartbroken. It turned out that everything her mother did was to avenge her grandfather, and she had lived so miserably for so many years. At the hotel press conference, the will of the director, who had died 20 years ago, was suddenly announced. He declared that son would inherit 50% of the group's shares. Everyone was stunned. It turned out the director had realized early on that the secretary and now had bad intentions toward him, so before he died, he made a will and gave it to his kind mother-in-law. After the reporters left, the secretary strangled Now said she knew absolutely nothing about the will, and that only her mother knew. For years, the secretary had helped Now rise to a high position, only to have her daughter steal the fruits of his labor. Although he and Now still owned the remaining 50% of the shares, he still wasn't satisfied. Actually, the person who harmed the director back then wasn't Now, but the secretary. He had mixed 2 glasses of poison juice, gave one to Now, and gave the other to the little girl, telling her to give it to her father. The director saw his daughter bringing him juice, so he let his guard down. After drinking it, he passed out on his desk. The secretary walked over with a knife, covered his mouth, and stabbed the director repeatedly until he stopped breathing. When Now woke up, she didn't know what had just happened, only seeing the murder weapon in her hand, so she mistakenly thought she was the one who had finished off the director. Now, the board of directors officially announced that the late director's daughter had become the group's largest shareholder. After the meeting, the daughter hugged her mother from behind, promising to manage the company well. Now didn't truly love her daughter, because the girl wasn't the director's biological daughter, but the daughter of the scumbag who betrayed her. The secretary wasn't willing to accept this. He sneaked into the daughter's house, strangled her, and said the position of hotel heir should have been his, and that one day he would take back everything that belonged to him. It turned out the secretary was the director's half-brother, an illegitimate child, which was why his talent was buried by his older brother, and he had to work as a lowly secretary. As for Bai Thun, he went to find Now, saying he wanted to marry her. Now didn't agree, because a doctor was also pursuing her at the same time. They were childhood sweethearts who grew up in the same village, and he had even helped Now finish her studies, pass the university entrance exam, and successfully get a job as a receptionist at the hotel. When the whole village bullied Now's family, the doctor stood up to help them chase the villagers away. But for many years, Now was bent on revenge and ignored the doctor who always silently supported her from behind. Deep down, she didn't want to ruin the doctor's future, because after finishing her revenge plan, she intended to die together with the secretary. Elsewhere, Bai Thun had just finished his divorce procedures with his wife one moment, and the next moment he took the divorce certificate to find the wealthy woman to propose. Meanwhile, his ex-wife Benny was still hugging her sister and crying her heart out in front of the divorce office. A 20-year marriage finally ended this way. What Bai Thun didn't expect was that Now flatly rejected his proposal. Now said she didn't like him at all, and told him to stop daydreaming. She even had the secretary beat him up and step on him. Bai Thun couldn't believe that Now was the very woman he had cruelly harmed 20 years ago. He wasn't willing to accept it as he was dragged out of the office by the henchmen. Hearing that her ex-husband went to propose to another woman right after the divorce, Benny fell into deep despair at home. She never thought she would lose so miserably one day. Just then Now suddenly appeared at the door. Benny was stunned, unable to hide her bitterness, and coldly asked why she came looking for her when things had reached this point. Turns out, Now only came to congratulate Benny on the divorce, while openly mocking and ridiculing the two sisters, as if other people's pain was what made her happiest. Right at that moment, a scandal video suddenly appeared online showing someone from Benny's company bribing a high-ranking Thai government official. This meant the company was about to go bankrupt. And the mastermind behind all of this was Now. Benny went crazy with rage like a madwoman. Now left the scene looking smug. The sister chased after her and asked Now why she did that, destroying their family and home. She had no idea that Now was the woman Benny trampled under her feet 20 years ago, and she was also one of the witnesses back then. That evening, the more Bai Thun thought about it, the angrier he got. He was now left with empty hands. So he went to Now's house to demand an explanation. Now didn't back down either. Holding a fruit knife, she told him not to come closer, saying if he dared to take another step, she would end his life. Bai Thun had to leave. Her mother repeatedly advised her daughter to let go of the hatred and not make any more mistakes. But Now didn't listen at all, determined to complete her revenge, because this was the result she had endured humiliation for 20 years to achieve. Just then, a henchman reported that a woman had plunged from the building outside. Now immediately ran out to check. The person who died was Now's best friend and assistant. It turned out the late director's secretary had tied her up on the rooftop and kicked her off. Seeing her loved ones pass away one by one before her eyes, Now lost control right there. She thought Benny was the one who harmed her best friend, so she kidnapped Benny's sister for revenge, then set up a meeting with Benny at an abandoned factory. After losing the company, Benny only had her sister left as her only relative. She went to the meeting spot alone, saying that as long as they agreed to release her sister, she was willing to do anything. 20 years ago, Now was trampled underfoot and humiliated by Benny, and now she wanted to pay Benny back in the same way. The woman humiliated herself by crawling on the ground, allowing a high heel to step on her face and grind it, just to save her sister who was tied up nearby. However, now went back on her word. A henchman blindfolded the younger sister, and following a gunshot, the older sister was shot right there. After that, Benny was dumped in a desolate place. That evening, Benny took a rake and went to Nao's house for revenge. Her sister was the only relative she had left, so she had nothing left to lose. She swung the rake at Nao, but the old mother reacted in time and shielded her daughter. Getting thrown against the wall by Benny, Nao took the chance to grab the rake, and the two struggled. The daughter ran over to stop them but was also shoved aside. Meanwhile, Baithun was standing nearby watching the show. Benny was stronger, pushed Nao to the ground, then swung the rake at Nao's daughter. Seeing this, Baithun rushed out to shield his daughter, and his body was pierced by the rake. Benny couldn't believe she had killed her husband with her own hands. Baithun was dying now. He begged Benny not to hurt his daughter and told Nao to take the daughter and leave. Benny resented her husband for only loving his daughter even at the moment of death, never caring about her survival. Baithun said his sins were deep, and he had caused irreparable harm to his daughter, hoping his death could atone for his crimes. It turned out Baithun appeared at Nao's house because he had just come to kneel and apologize to Nao and their daughter, hoping to be forgiven. At this moment, the evil mastermind, the secretary, poured gasoline outside and lit a fierce fire, trapping them all inside, preparing to burn the whole bunch alive. Benny, on the other hand, laughed happily. She was ready to perish together with everyone. She grabbed Nao's daughter, swearing to jump into the sea of fire with the girl. Nao immediately rushed forward and pushed her daughter away. Benny said she once considered Nao a good best friend, never expecting to be repaid with enmity. Then, she hugged Nao tightly to die together. Baithun used his last bit of strength to crawl up, separated the two, and then held Benny tightly, telling Nao to take the daughter away. Before dying, he said his final words, admitting that he was the one who had failed both mother and daughter. After Nao and her daughter left, Benny tried to struggle out of his arms, but the fire had surrounded them on all sides, blocking every escape route. In that final moment, she quietly asked Baithun one single question. Did he ever truly love her? Baithun looked at her, his voice hoarse, and admitted that he had loved her very, very much. Hearing that answer, Benny smiled softly, having no more regrets in her heart. The couple held each other tightly, letting the sea of fire swallow them whole, as if that was the ending they had chosen together. Luckily, Nao, her mother, and her daughter escaped. Actually, Nao didn't harm Benny's sister. She just wanted Benny to taste the pain of watching a loved one die before her eyes. The daughter had a hard time finding her biological father, only to watch helplessly as he burned in the sea of fire. The doctor comforted the girl, saying that if she didn't mind, he could be her stepfather. While Sun was washing her face in the restroom, the secretary suddenly appeared and kidnapped her, then notified Nao to bring all the company shares to ransom her. The daughter was taken to a desolate mountain area and locked up with a strange woman. This stranger claimed to be her biological mother. It turned out that Sun wasn't Nao's biological daughter. Nao actually lost her baby in that hallway 20 years ago. That day at the hospital, she ran into a girl from her village who was unmarried, pregnant, and giving birth. In their village, an unmarried pregnant woman was considered a jinx who would bring bad luck. So that girl didn't dare bring the baby back to the village and begged Nao to adopt her daughter. Feeling sorry for her, Nao agreed. It wasn't until 20 years later, when the daughter was kidnapped by the secretary and met her birth mother, that she finally learned the truth about what happened back then. The secretary demanded that the mother and daughter hand over all the company shares. Just as the daughter was signing her name, Finn and the doctor arrived in time to save them. After a struggle, the daughter used a pen to attack the secretary, but he threw her to the ground. By this time, the police had also arrived at the scene. The secretary held the daughter hostage and ran to the edge of a cliff. Nao told the secretary to let her daughter go and take her as a hostage instead, saying this was a grudge between the two of them and there was no need to involve her daughter. So, the secretary let the daughter go and pointed his gun at Nao. Nao told her daughter to live a good life and take care of her grandmother. Then, she turned back and apologized to the secretary. Nao took the chance to grab the secretary tight, and they both fell into the deep abyss together. A year later, the daughter took her mother's place as the new director of the corporation. Finn officially proposed to his girlfriend. Her birth mother brought the wedding shoes and put them on her daughter herself. Although she had lost her adoptive parents, the daughter still lived very happily because she always remembered her adoptive mother's final words before falling off the cliff. While the whole family was taking a photo together, a woman in the distance was silently happy for them. Only the doctor noticed her. It turned out that after falling off the cliff, Nao survived. She got caught in a tree branch and was lucky enough to live. But she chose not to reunite with her family, because Nao knew her appearance would only disrupt their current lives. True love meant letting them live happily. Every year, Nao went to the graves of the director and Baithun to place a bouquet of flowers. These were the two most important men in her life. Now told the director that the daughter he loved the most was now living very happily. Bai Thun's biggest regret before he died was violating Sun without knowing the truth. And he left this world in the sea of fire carrying deep self-blame. Now told Bai Thun not to blame himself anymore. Because Sun wasn't actually his daughter. The movie ends here. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting movies.